Let's take a look at some of the laws governing copyrights and fair use in the classroom. There are three principal laws that have come out over the last 20, 30 years that govern our use of resources that we find on the internet and in books uh, with fair use. The first and most well known is the Fair Use Doctrine. Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976 set four guidelines for establishing fair use. What it means for online instructors and any instructor is that whatever we use must be for nonprofit educational use. The nature of the work sets the amount of fair use, and the amount of the work used varies depending on the work. So a poem, compared to a book, might have a smaller chunk that you can use in your classroom compared to a book where you might be able to use a lot larger piece. The fourth guideline is one that we don't think of quite as often or about, is the effect of the use on the potential market value of the work. If your fair use is going to impact the potential market value of the work, you're not allowed to use that item for fair use. We need to take that into consideration more when we put things online, because we have a lot bigger audience when it comes to an online classroom. In 1998, Congress passed the Digital Millennial Copyright Act, and it was the first copyright law to address digital copyright. What it meant for online instructors and the school was it gave the school limited liability as long as we were acting as an ISP, which is Internet Service Provider. What that meant is if we did certain things, basically appoint an agent to receive reports of copyright infringement, complied with any legal takedown request, put measures in place to protect against unauthorized access, and we only used lawfully acquired copyright works, then we were given some protection against accidental copyright, illegal copyright and illegal usages, as long as we complied to any takedown requests that we've got. In 2002, the Teach Act was passed to allow for fair use in the digital classroom. Teach Act stood for Technology, Education, and Copyright Harmonization Act of 2002. And it was meant to harmonize digital classrooms with face-to-face classrooms. It allows us to use the same works in the digital space as in the face-to-face space, sort of. The regulations of the Teach Act require additional staffing and technology, and it didn't cover a lot of the things that we use in the classroom. It does not cover course packs, doesn't cover digital reserves, or works protected by digital locks. It also didn't cover items not available in a digital format. For example, in a recent incident here on campus, we had a VCR tape of a video an instructor wanted to use online. The work was never available digitally, and we are not allowed to make a copy of it into a digital format because we don't have the authorization or the right to fair use that in the digital format, even though we had the right and fair use in the VCR version of it. Some of the problems is that, yes, copyright used to be simpler. Printed copyright and fair use is better understood. We have good procedures already in place to handle the copyright requests for print and traditional media. Occasional mistakes weren't as big a deal because we were dealing with a smaller audience in a face-to-face environment. It was a closed audience. If you made a mistake, very few people were impacted by it. It was also easier to see and determine when a class began and ended. Fair use is determined by when you use it as much as by what you're using. When you put something online in your class, it's a lot more difficult to determine the beginning and end because we tend to use classes over and over again. And it was a lot less technology being used 20 years ago. It was mostly print media and pictures that we could print and make copies of. So it was a little simpler to understand and be in compliance with copyright law. What we see now is we're all getting overloaded, and our systems for handling our copyrights are getting overloaded. We're facing a lot of new types of media and new use rules for that media, depending on whether it's in the traditional classroom or online. So the same video, the same piece of text offline will have two different sets of rules depending on where it's used. The staff in charge of pursuing copyrights are faced with even more requests on a larger variety of items because there's just more of it that we can use, and we want to have that variety in our online classrooms. And the rules are getting more complex and confusing as we get more complex software and resources. There's a lot of new gray area in the law with no legal precedence, meaning that the laws that have come out haven't all been tested in the court yet, so we don't know where the edges are. We don't know in some areas what's right and what's wrong. Some of the new technology coming out that we can use in the online classroom, it's difficult to assign a category to. In fair use law and that, we tend to assign things in category. If it goes here, that's the law that goes with it. And with some of the new technology, it can be very difficult to put it in a category. Online LMS classrooms are different from the face-to-face classroom. As you move something that we have fair use in the face-to-face classroom into an LMS classroom, the law changes, and that makes it confusing for an instructor and for staff right there. And of course, we're all facing change as we get new technology and new laws keep being written. What can you do? The best thing to do is continue to try to give proper attribution to all the resources you use in your online classroom. We also need to be modeling good copyright practices for students so that they learn that things online do have copyright and they do need to follow attribution properly and make sure they're putting copyright symbols on things and understanding that everything is not free. We also need to be flexible. If you need a resource for a class and you can't find something, make sure you reach out and ask for help. Be willing to use something else if you have to. Another thing is to plan ahead. As soon as you're going to start working on an online class, reach out to eLearning and the library in the planning phase for your new class so we can help you gather the resources that you need. And as resources, here's a few different places you can get more information on fair use. The Copyright Clearance Center will help you clear resources on different things so you can get copyright. The Creative Commons is a great place to find. CreativeCommons.org is a great place to find things that have fair use built into them, so you can use the pictures in that really easily. And of course, the Whatcom Library has a great site with links to different things and great information on plagiarism and copyrights for your students. So I hope this was useful. Thank you.